Hello, everybody. It's Max with Crypto Talk Now. A while back, I came up with this possibility when it comes to Quant and Jasmy. And while I even thought about mentioning it to the public, I realized to myself, you know what? You need to take more of a deeper dive into this because that sounds really, really speculative and that's a stretch. But over time, I become more and more enthused or interested at the same time in regards to this topic. And that is basically, can Quant have something going on, for instance, with Jasmy? Maybe not officially, but how about this? Through Overledger. So without further ado, we're going to jump not only into that particular prospect, but the whole idea of Jasmy's double D stablecoin. And on top of that, a Japanese CBDC, which is basically coming up here soon. We're going to tie all of it together in today's outline. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Quant and Jasmy. Here we go. All right, so anybody can basically look right into this. And, I will give a shout out to, for instance, KIR Finance. He's covered, obviously, DD coin probably maybe a year ago and so on. But the main key takeaway is this. Like it shows, it's a Japanese yen-backed stablecoin. Now, why mention some of these things when you could just, look into it for yourself? Well, some of you guys maybe have not looked into it for yourself. But I'm going to tie, like I mentioned, all this together. So, as you can see, DD Coin is a new reward system to promote data utilization. Technically, it's not that new. But it says there's features to this, granted to individuals as a reward for providing data redeemable for Jasmy coin used to purchase DD token recorded on chain, legally equivalent to points. And of course, we have an outline in regards to how that point breakdown basically works. There's advantages to this particular stablecoin. Like it mentions, it supports Internet of Things data. It's inexpensive and fast, and has fast transactions. You got to keep in mind, sometimes people look at Jasmy and they say to themselves, well, how can I have fast transactions? It's Ethereum based. Keep in mind, there's also a Binance smart chain, a BSC bridge, right? On top of that, it says a local currency, in-game currency, no market value. There's no market value fluctuation, can be introduced by listed companies. So with that said, I got more into this whole topic of, Japan and this whole topic of CBDCs and so on. So I wanted to start things off from the past to give you a broader idea of, basically where we're at right now in regards to Japan and CBDCs and, just this whole big outline, if you will. So it says Japan, like it says, is about to take a significant step toward developing a digital currency. This originally, was sourced from Reuters. It says a consortium made of approximately 70 Japanese firms said this week, at least back then, that they plan to launch a yen-based cryptocurrency in 2022. So that right there, just think about that for a second, okay? And jump back to, for instance, the DD coin with Jasmy. So what's notable about the project, tentatively called DCJPY, is that that there's basically 3 of the country's largest banks that will back it. And of course, there's a news conference and so on. But like it says right here, CBDCs are something China and the US are exploring as well. We know about this stuff. But what about Japan? So for Japan, it says there's an additional incentive to the push in a country that's famously, they love cash, but anything, what about the shift towards a digital form of that? You got to keep in mind, if their country is embracing the concept of, protecting privacy and so on, why would you want to go with a centralized authority, hence like a central bank digital currency? That would be, counterproductive or counterintuitive, right? Well, it says even as recently as 2018, 80% of all retail transactions in the country were completed in notes, and coins is something that the government of Japan has tried to change as a way to make the country's economy more consumer friendly and productive. But let's face it, all that changed when COVID happened. And, for instance, Jasmy recognizes that, hence the Jasmy secure PCs, being able to work from home remotely and so on. So I thought to myself, what about this whole thesis, like I was mentioning before, of the possibility of Quant and Jasmy? As we know, Quant had that patent application in Japan. And again, I promise we're going to get into all that as well. So check this out for yourself. This comes from TechCrunch.com. Now let's fast forward a little bit more towards this year, right? The last one I showed you was 2021. This one right here says Japan Central Bank to pilot digital currency starting in April. Of course, April already passed. But, the source basically shows February 20th, 2023. And it says, Japan is joining a growing list of countries exploring the possibility of adopting a digital currency, with the country's central bank, the Bank of Japan, which is DOGE, announcing that it would launch a pilot to test a digital yen in April. Again, key thing, digital yen. It says the move comes more than 2 years after the BOJ made its first step in the space, launching a central bank digital currency proof of concept experiment, in 2020. You got to keep in mind, there was this period where back in, I think it was 2021, maybe 2022, where they were really starting to get things going, and then everything came to a halt in regards to the CBDC for Japan. It says the Bank of Japan kicked off the first phase of that POC in April 2021 to test the basis or the basic transactions of the CBDC, including issuance, payout, and transfer. A year later, Japan entered phase 2 of the POC, which is expected to end. It already did end last March, right? Just basically a couple months ago. To conduct additional functions of CBDC related to its core performance. Now, the pilot program, and I know this is a lot verbatim, but we're going to get a little bit more into the other lineup that we have for you. The pilot program launching in April aimed basically to test the technical feasibility not fully covered by the POCs and to utilize the skill and insight of private businesses in terms of technology and operation for designing a CBDC ecosystem in the possible event of social implementation. Now, keep in mind, in Japan, they have a different way about going, with the flow, but at the same time respecting citizens' rights of ownership of, for instance, data and privacy. So I want to jump over to this right here, and it's something that I actually just stumbled upon. I want to say earlier today, many hours ago, and the key thing that I found here was this was just released not that long ago. This is an actual PDF. And, like it shows right here, this is a presentation by Hiromi Yamaoka. Pronounce that right. He's from the IMF, Asia Pacific Regional. And on this outline, like it shows right here, digital currencies and the future of monetary system. But the key thing is, this just came out like basically a few days ago, right? Like roughly 6 to 7 days ago. Actually a little bit more than that. Sorry about that. Anyway, Hiromi Yamaoka. Who is he? That's a great question. He is the head of Future Institute of Research. He's the chairperson, Digital Currency Forum, chief advisor for International Finance, Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Now, I'm not going to have time, of course, to do all 24 pages of this PDF. So, like I teach, for instance, with my students and so on, especially when it comes to ebooks, Control F is your best friend, right? Saves you a lot of time. So I thought I would just type in the word data and, for instance, see the key highlights. I already reviewed most of this, so I thought I'd bring it to you. Check this out for just a moment. So obviously, like it says right here, information and data central banks does not monopolize information and data attached to payments. It mentions, for instance, banknotes carry only the information of value. The issuer central bank does not know each holder of them. Central banks refrains from occupying the information and data about people's daily transactions. So this narrative all across the world that, you know, a CBDC is going to be the same for every country could be furthermore from the truth. In Japan, as you can see, this particular CBDC is not going to be where it's intrusive, you know, trying to find out every little thing about a person's life and so on. Again, for Japan, especially like, you know, with Jasmy, with the personal data lockers and, you know, the respect of privacy and so on, that is counterproductive. It's counterintuitive. It just doesn't make any sense. So when I saw this on this PDF, I said to myself, wow, you know, that is something else. So we're going to get a little bit more into this, and I want to show you this next part. I think I did mention this, you know, central bank refrains from occupying the information data about people's daily transactions. I did read that. Sorry about that. I want to go further down into this. What's the impact on data and privacy, right? How does digital bank run? That's the part above it. Will CBDCs accelerate liquidity crisis in a market stressed environment, basically? You know? And this part right here, I know it's kind of hard to see it, but it says, under the development of digital innovation, global expansion of cashless payments, and the emergence of crypto assets, some argue that central banks should issue digital currencies that can be used by ordinary people instead of paper-based banknotes. That's like straight up Japan right there. Like on that report that we gave you earlier on this outline, what was the stats? They used something like 80% of the country before 2018 used banknotes. Of course, the whole thing with COVID threw that off. But it goes on to also mention, the debates on central bank digital currencies are now gathering great attention from the world, everyone. You got to keep in mind this. There's a translation on this, so it doesn't have the English perfect. It says, although many of the major central banks, including the Bank of Japan, do not have immediate plan to issue digital currencies that can replace banknotes, some central banks are seriously considering whether they should issue digital currencies in the near future. Of course, there's a lot of impacts of digitalization in the monetary system, but just think about some of the stuff that's mentioned here. Crypto assets, big tech, and stablecoins, again, stablecoins, may affect the balance and change the two-tiered structure. So what's an example? Well, like it shows right here. Crypto assets, big techs, digital payment platforms, stablecoins, central bank digital currency can be regarded as the authorities' efforts to maintain the controllability of monetary system. But CBDC may also change the two-tier structure into the single tier and affect the balance. Very, very true. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities here. I want to show you this down here. And it says, for instance, straight from the University of Tokyo, which is a Bank of Japan conference on fintech and monetary system in the future. On some of the main arguments, look what's mentioned here as well. As long as digital payment instruments are denominated by the nation's sovereign currency unit, the effectiveness of the nation's macro policies will be maintained. Digital technologies may intensify the competition among currencies, and each nation is required to enhance the utility of its currency in the nation's hopes its currency to remain widely used. I should say if the nation's hopes, hope, again, it's not perfect English because of the translation, its currency to remain widely used. With digital technologies, payment instruments are expected to function as the infrastructure for information, and you saw it right, data. And a little bit more into this. All right. So when I go further more down into this, I'll show you this as well. This is the part, yes. Digital currency form and DCJPY. You're going to hear more about that also from another particular gentleman here soon. Digital currency forum, which consists of around, listen to this, guys, 100 leading firms, including 3 mega banks, tries to introduce two-tier digital currency platform named DCJPY. Here are the benefits of that. JPY denominated and issued by private entities such as banks, fostering private-led resource allocation and innovation, avoiding digital bank run. Now, why point that out? At the end of the day, if people are going to say that cryptocurrency through blockchain technology, DLT, and so on is the answer to stopping bank runs, right? Talking about that supply and demand for crypto, here's a perfect example of just that. This is one of the main benefits. It's going to avoid digital bank runs. There's two-tier structure. I think I mentioned this earlier. There's more on this. So this two-tier structure of common area and programmable business process area is going to maintain the benefits of the modern monetary system, facilitating utilization of data by private entities. Who could be one of those private entities? Now, some people want to say this is a stretch. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And again, we're going to get more into why you're going to, in my opinion, a lot of you guys are going to feel like, you know what, this is something solid. Of course, we could all agree to disagree. And there's going to be some people going to say this is a real stretch, Max, and that's okay. I mean, I could take it. So it says facilitating utilization of data by private entities. Again, think of Jasmy. Applying smart contracts to sophisticated transaction. Smart contracts. So at the end of the day, what is this about? This is literally kind of like what you saw early on the report of Japan in that Web3 white paper. Your whole entire country embracing innovation, embracing blockchain and DLT and Web3 in the future, right? Applying smart contracts. What kind of smart contract would make sense for not just Japan with CBDCs, but even with Jasmy? Well, you better believe, how about one that can not only provide a smart contract, but a secure smart contract? What would be one of those secure smart contracts? Like, for instance, in the form of like NFTs, the QRC 721 secure smart contract, right? And as we also know, with Quant's Overledger, they allow for interoperability of 100 plus blockchains. So I want to show you just a tad more in regards to this. DCJPY has the potential, listen to this, to maximize the benefits of CBDC if issued. DCJPY can keep two-tiered structure and make full use of private sector initiatives toward innovation and data utilization. What would be one of those private sectors? Some people say, well, it could be somebody other than Jasmy, and I get that. But at the end of the day, Jasmy doesn't really have any competition, and especially when it comes to Japan. So if it is a private sector that has initiatives towards innovation and data utilization, am I too far off as far as the claim that it could very well be Jasmy? At the end of the day, as I would say, I know I say that a lot, who's the other big player? I don't really see one. So I want to show you just a tad bit more on this PDF, all right? And what are some of the issues for future monetary system? It's a great question. This PDF does a great job of outlining that. There's impacts on financial intermediation, resource allocation, function of banks, roles of bank regulation, deposit issuance, data governance, ideal balance between data utilization and privacy. But look how many times data is mentioned, and look how many times privacy is mentioned. And how about this? Legal and institutional framework for asset tokenization and new digital assets. This is all crypto related. If Jasmy, I shouldn't say if, but let's face it, with Jasmy, they are basically speaking all of this and then some. And then to have this concept of legal and institutional framework for asset tokenization and new digital assets. What would be some of the examples of asset tokenization? Well, some of the things that are provided from IoT, whether it is with autonomous vehicles, or whether it is the digital twins from WITS, for instance, with some of these things, right? The tokenization of anything and everything. And it says, for instance, new digital assets. What would be a new digital asset? Would it be in the form of a digital yen? Or would it be in the form of something else that's also tied to it? I'm just saying. Future of central banking, ideal roles of central bank money in payments and settlements, ideal balance between nation and market. So thank you for your attention. Thank you guys for your attention. Now, of course, you're more than welcome to look into this entire PDF if you choose to do so. And if anything, I'm going to have it in the description and you can download it for yourself. But another thing I want to show you is this right here. And that is this concept of, for instance, what you see in regards to data and, for instance, this DD stablecoin and so on. Now, what it shows right here, and this was again posted about a year ago, but it's going to make more sense to you. And that is the explanation of Jasmy's service. Listen to this. In regards to, let me see here, Takashi Hagawara, who is the director and head of software development, who gave a presentation including a demonstration titled Explanation of the Jasmy Service. First, he introduced Jasmy's unique core services. There are two major ones. Listen to this. We know about Smart Guardian for the most part, but if anything, I'll probably do like maybe a deeper dive into that. But you guys could, for instance, go to like KIR Finance or some of these other guys who have covered this long before me, who done some of these explanations. But like it mentions, Smart Guardian, a function that connects IoT devices that collect data to BC, for secure data management and use. The other is SKC, Secure Knowledge Communication, which allows the individual to manage his or own personal information. The first drive recorder that records PC. I mean, they have a whole outline, right? It says this function is to protect data, allowing data and folders to appear only under specific conditions. But where I'm getting with this is, when it comes to Jasmy, it's all about data, right? Like this, the personal data locker is how data is used and secured. How about this statement? The user simply scans 2D barcode at the concert venue, and the PDL data is read and managed by a 2D barcode. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, if we're implementing a CBDC, well, and we're also trying to protect the data of, what's tracked to a sense, like was mentioned for this particular CBDC. Wouldn't it make sense to use some of these things you see on this outline from a personal data locker? Yeah. How about this, just to pound it home a little bit more? Introduction of Jasmy's case study demonstration experiment to explore true value users seek in travel. Kazuhiro Miyoshi of Nippon Travel Agency reported on a demonstration experiment in collaboration with Jasmy. In the it says Corona, so basically, after COVID, the travel industry is expected to undergo major changes, including changes in travel needs and travel application methods, so on and so forth, right? What I want to show you right here is, it says the company defines value provision as the overlap between value that Nippon Travel Agency can provide and value that users seek, will leverage Jasmy's personal data locker and edge AI provide new value that Nippon Travel Agency did not know about or could not provide. How about creating value for the case of a CBDC through privacy? That was just one example right there. I'm going to jump off of this page, and I want to show you this, because this will take you back to the whole outline of DD, and we do need to address this real quick. So this is not the deepest dive in regards to DD, right? But we need to mention why it's important. So, this was, of course, interpreted from Japanese to English, but it mentions, for instance, like the Platinum Data Initiative. Did you know about that? We talked about it briefly before, about maybe a month or two ago. So I'm going to highlight some key things here. Platinum data is a data with a small amount of information but high value. In the conventional centralized data marketplace, profits were concentrated in GAFA and others by using big data. However, the ecosystem that Jasmy envisions is not a large data marketplace, but one that can be started with a small piece of data called platinum data. Now, think about this for a moment. Here at CTN, we obviously cover XRP. We do it mainly on the live show. Sometimes we do recorded videos, but you got to keep in mind XRP is it's kind of like hit or miss, right? So, we do want to value our time and effort. But one of the consistent things mentioned about Ripple's XRP is, some of these assets, they got to be backed by something like gold. Well, what about this? Platinum data? I know it sounds corny, but think about it for a second. So it says that, even though personal information is anonymized, I'm not even pronouncing that right, excuse me. It is collected and analyzed while maintaining traceability. This will also benefit local communities and small groups, he said. What kind of technology will be used to achieve this? Token services such as DD token, which is basically Jasmy stablecoin, DD coin and NFT, which were newly introduced at this briefing, and the link between DD token service and personal data loggers. By the way, DD stands for the data democracy. So literally the coin is DD is data democracy coin. Jasmy's token service enables data-based economic activity by individuals, companies, and communities, and easily issues tickets, DD tokens, points, DD coins, and digital certificates, NFTs, that are indispensable at that time. It is possible to provide a mechanism that can provide and circulate. And by linking Jasmy's token service with PDL, it will be a future where corporate services are improved and the value of personal data is improved through rewards. So I want to state this, right? If there's even a doubt for a moment when it comes to these CBDCs, like let's say they can't get everybody on board for this, right? So, you may be thinking, well, Max, I thought you said that after COVID for Japan, the country, to a sense, would be on board for this. Yeah, hear me out. If 80% of the country before 2018 was like a cash-based society that really they just love cash, right? Wouldn't it make sense to have, for instance, this with the DD tokens, where you can incentivize a point system, like it says? Easily issue tickets, DD tokens, points, DD coins, and digital certificates in the form like NFTs that are indispensable at the time. It is, I know I'm reading this again, but it says it is possible that that will provide a mechanism that can provide and circulate. What would be the mechanism? Well, maybe the mechanism is a Japanese CBDC. Now, I understand, some of you guys may be thinking, well, you ever gonna get to the point about the quant connection? Oh, you better believe it. That is the icing on the cake. Now, what I'm going to show you is basically this. What is the Jasmy ecosystem? It states, for instance, the Jasmy ecosystem, and I know I probably should blow this up a little bit more. Sorry about that. Let me blow it up a little more. There we go. Nice and big. So it says the Jasmy ecosystem is a mechanism and platform for achieving Jasmy's goal of democratizing data and improving. I probably should just, go down just a tad bit more. That way I don't have to go back and forth. All right. Sorry about that. But, for improving, for instance, where was that? The value of data. Yeah, the value of data. DD token technology was introduced to expand this platform functionality, and here is an example. It has been introduced in the J League team Seigen Tosu. Now, I had an update in regards to Seigen Tosu, and I was thinking, well, will I include on this outline? No, trust me, you don't want to get bored with that. You would probably appreciate it if you lived in, I think it's like Osaka, Japan, and you're rooting for the Seigen Tosu. The soccer team and so on, but in reality, we don't need to spend much time on that. But it says, but for the heat of the fan support, they can be used as an asset, fan membership, using NFT issuing function, using Ethereum technology and dynamic NFT technology, ticket, and so on, right? With the issuance function, the DD token. A little bit more in regards to this DD token real quick, because I want to be able, it may not sound super interesting, but it's going to really do a good job of tying all this in, I swear to you. So it says DD coin should be noted With Jasmy's platform, large transactions, a series of individual information processing on a computer, are expected due to a dramatic increase in IoT data. In response, Jasmy developed a new reward system, DD Coin. It is a yen-denominated stablecoin. Objectives are issued as rewards to individuals who provide data. Another advantage is that it can be exchanged for Jasmy coin. They are legally the same as points and do not need to be marked to market. I like this point too. However, what is the difference between the conventional point system and DD Coin? Previously, DD Coin was only used to specific purposes, but DD Coin can be used for other services within the platform. In addition, data was recorded on a server in the past, and it can be recorded on the BC by decentralization. Companies also benefit from not having to pay for building and using servers. Conventionally, data was analyzed and used by companies and was not attributed to individuals. However, as a result, when a company uses data, it is possible to build a system that rewards individuals. At the end of the day, like I mentioned before, if you can incentivize people to use the new technology, whether it is, for instance, this new digital yen or the CBDC, I think with this concept, that simply makes sense. I'll read this last part. 3 KPIs were also presented: 2 million users, 107 million personal data locker users, and 10 billion yen in circulation of DD coin. By achieving this, we aim to make a leap to the next step. Well, what would be that next step? And what would that consist of? And that right there, I'm just being flat out honest, that excites me. Because with those particular KPIs, it's like, okay, this concept of $17 and some change simply makes sense to me. Okay? But as we know, Jasmy's looking to take this thing not just to Asia, they're looking to go worldwide with that. For me, that makes me even that much more bullish on Jasmy. Now check this out for yourself. We're going to jump into this next particular part, and you're going to see this gentleman. He hasn't done a video in roughly about a month, but he's going to give you an excellent breakdown of how all this ties into the recent with some of these, the CBDC for Japan and so on. So we're going to take a moment to watch that, and then we'll come right back.
Today we'll be talking about how the Japanese central bank may be set to use Quant. So, in a fantastic thread of tweets provided by Sanel on Twitter, he provided details surrounding how the Central Bank of Japan may be set to use Quant's innovations, especially its MLT stablecoin, in developments surrounding CBDCs within the nation. So, the initial tweet provided by Sanel went into details surrounding the powerhouse Japan is in terms of finance, where 4 of the largest banks in Japan make up the top 15 banks in the world. And this is coupled with Japan already being at the center of other developments around the world, especially surrounding railway developments, gaming, and electric organizations. So the points put forward by Sanel in the following tweets is in reference to a white paper published by the Central Bank of Japan, where the white paper discussed details surrounding its DCJPY stablecoin, where the DCJPY stablecoin is set to be at the center of developments surrounding finance within Japan, especially in terms of CBDC activities, where the DCJPY stablecoin is set to be a means of enabling the interconversion between varying CBDCs around the world. So the initial point put forward by Sanel detailed the potential link Quant could have with the Japanese central bank and the DCJPY stablecoin, where within the white paper, the paper referenced to the intrinsic qualities attached to its DCJPY stablecoin, where the DCJPY stablecoin is geared towards enabling the interconversion between assets, be it fiat or a physical good, into a digital asset, where DCJPY will be the underlying stablecoin which will facilitate this interconversion, where the paper mentioned to the ability for DCJPY to mint and burn an asset into a digital representation of a given good or asset. So the minting and burning mechanism associated with the DCJPY stablecoin is actually similar to the function of Quant's MLT stablecoin, whereas detailed by the Quant team, MLT stablecoin is geared towards providing the ability to convert a given asset into a digital representation of such assets. in a similar form to the DCJPY stablecoin. So the similar nature surrounding MOT and the DCJPY stablecoin may be an indicative feature which may indicate how Quant's innovations, including MOT, is at the center of development surrounding stablecoin developments within Japan. So again, this is the first point put forward by Sanel. So another point put forward by the white paper published by the Japanese central bank includes the central bank detailing the need for cross-chain interoperability, especially between private DLT networks, and how future networks, especially CBDC networks, will need to have some degree of interoperability. So the points put forward by the Japanese central bank was actually echoed in a tweet provided by the Quant CEO Gilbert Verdian, where he detailed the importance of cross-chain interoperability, especially when CBDCs are rolled out onto the open market. And he also mentioned to how Quant's multi-ledger token stablecoin is equipped with a number of features which makes it cross-chain compatible, where the stablecoin isn't limited to a single DLT network and can be leveraged and connected to varying other networks on the marketplace. So when CBDCs are rolled out onto the open market, and when there's a growing need to interconvert CBDCs or potentially convert a given good into a digital representation, Quant's MOT stablecoin could be a viable candidate to conduct such activities. So again, this could point to another reason as to why the Japanese central bank may turn to the likes of Quant's MOT stablecoin, especially in terms of CBDC developments and also in enabling the interconversion of a given good into a digital representation of such good. So the benefits provided by Quant's MOT stablecoin is actually limited to Quant, where the benefits provided by MOTs is actually patent pending. So if the patent is registered, this could mean that Quant could be the only offering and fintech organization which provides this desired characteristic. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the need for cross-chain interoperability and how the likes of MOT could be actively leveraged in mechanisms surrounding the minting and burning of a given good into a digital representation of such good. So again, another reason as to why the Japanese central bank may turn to the likes of Quant over other developments on the marketplace. So Quant CEO Gilbert Verdian has actually mentioned to Japan's DCJPY stablecoin in a number of articles which have been published on the Quant website, where in a discussion surrounding CBDC developments and how stablecoins, especially private issue stablecoins, will become extremely important, especially in enabling the cross conversion between CBDCs. The article pointed to the DCJPY stablecoin and how the stablecoin again is centered around improving cross-chain interoperability and could improve the ability for funds to be transferred between varying banking institutions, and in terms of facilitating and improving CBDC activities when they are rolled out across the open market. So another potential link Quant has with the Japanese central bank is a private conversation the Quant CEO Gilbert Verdian had in regards to the need for the direct incorporation of ODAT protocols into Japan's DCJPY stablecoin infrastructure, where ODAT protocols, including Quant's Overledger, could be directly incorporated into financial frameworks which occur within Japan, where Quant's Overledger ODAT protocol, which is again centered around providing connectivity between DLT networks and legacy systems and between DLTs, could be an encompassing technology which sees the likes of the Japanese central bank turning to. So this is the message provided by the Quant CEO, where he directly mentioned to the DCJPY stablecoin. So the benefits provided by Quant's offerings in MOT and Overledger could be at the center of developments involving financial activities which arise within Japan or are already occurring in Japan, especially in terms of the DCJPY stablecoin. So with the common characteristics associated with both the DCJPY stablecoin and MOT, this could indicate how the Central Bank of Japan may take on the benefits provided by Quant's offerings. So the points put forward in this video aren't definitive points which indicate how Quant is being used by the Japanese central bank. However, there are definitive links that point to a number of partnerships Quant is actively involved in, where Quant's innovations, including its Overledger protocol, is openly used by banks in mainland Europe, where Quant's Overledger has been directly incorporated into the CNNet CEAchain initiative, which sees the connectivity of blockchain infrastructure and DLT networks associated with 580 banks in Europe. where these banks take on the benefits provided by Overledger to enable the active ability for datasets on these networks to communicate, and datasets on these networks being able to be exchanged in an efficient manner. And this is coupled with one of the large cloud storage software organizations, Oracle, directly taking on the benefits provided by Overledger as a means of enabling, again, the direct communication between blockchain offerings it has on its platform. So the number of partnership Quant has with a number of esteemed organizations around the world is extremely bullish for QNT token holders, as such organizations wishing to implement and use Quant's offerings, especially Overledger or MLT, will mean that such organizations will have to purchase QNT as a form of licensing fees. And this is coupled with QNT being the underlying crypto which enables the active validation of transactions which arise through Overledger. So when transactions arise through Overledger, be it the transferring of datasets between one blockchain to another blockchain, or the interconversion of a given asset into a digital asset, these actions will be facilitated and validated through QNT. So the utility surrounding QNT both encompasses licensing fees and gas. So with the number of developments Quant is actively involved in, especially surrounding finance, Quant could be at the center of a number of developments within the financial sphere for years to come. And with the loose links Quant has with the Central Bank of Japan, especially surrounding its DCJPY stablecoin, Quant could also be at the center of developments involving financial developments in Japan.
All right, welcome back. I thought he did an absolute excellent job with his deep dive research and so on, right? His perspective on all of that. Now, that was, of course, from a while back, but he deserves to get recognition in regards to that. He hasn't done a video in about a month. I hope to God he didn't abandon his channel. Sometimes, I get it, it's a real grind, and, sometimes people get discouraged, or they, don't have as much time to focus on this stuff because real life gets in the way. But check this out. The last time he posted anything on his Twitter was back in March. He is referred to as Crypto Clan, and I am following him now. He originally started up this Twitter back in 2021. I mean, he has a decent following, even on YouTube. So if you use crypto Twitter, give him a follow. He's at Crypto Clan _, or you can follow him on, for instance, YouTube at Crypto Clan. So big thanks to him. And if you're watching at some particular point, Crypto Clan, hey, come back. We would like to see you again. All right. This part in regards to Quant. I want to show you this. Just making sure my settings are okay. Now, I do follow this guy. He's referred to as JATG, just a tech guy. And I guess I must have unfollowed him at some point when I was cleaning up house for people that don't follow me back after a while. So I'm going to give him a follow again. I have shared his content before. So the reason I want to point this out is, like it says, right? He posted this on April 10th, and we covered the whole thing, obviously, with Quant and, entering into Japan and so on. So it says Quant's patent of Overledger has been granted in Japan. Credit to the patent tracking community member, who is this particular guy, and who provided that, right? So I did blow this up, and if anything, I might come out of the frame for just a brief bit for you guys can see this real quick. Actually, I saw on the screen. I can see it. It looks pretty big right there, so that's good enough. But if anything, let's just blow it up maybe just a tad bit more. And yeah, I think that's good. All right, you can see it for yourself right here. Decision to grant a patent application number, Japanese patent application number 2020-547298, date of drafting March 9th, right? Basically just like a few, about a month and a half ago, not even that. Patent examiner Namida at Sushi, what a name. Blockchain communication and ordering. But the main thing is this: the number of claims 14, applicant Quant Network Limited. Shows a representative. This application is to be granted a patent since no reason for refusal has been found. Has some of the director information. It's legit, right? You can look more into it. Somebody did ask in regards to the source, right? So, I'll show you that real quick right here. And, this guy says, can you share the source, please? And like he's, Just a tech guy says, you can just query patent databases online, right? Absolutely. All you guys do, need to do basically is, um, if you're wanting to do this, is you just simply type this in, and you can find it for yourself. Just look up this particular Japanese patent application number, and it is 2020-547298. If you're wanting to do that, if you're wanting to, basically validate this for yourself. Now, I want to mention this. You saw the whole outline from, Crypto Clan. And if anything, I mean, it's nice to reflect on what has been happening with Japan. I, of course, showed you quite a few things in that regard as well. But what I want to do now is I want to jump over to this whole concept that's going to tie in, or as I would say, the icing on the cake that's going to tie in this whole thing of what I've stated before in a few previous videos, and that is basically Quant with Jasmy, right? That simply makes sense. If Quant applied for a patent license with Japan, right? Like it says, Japanese patent application, technically speaking. Well, wouldn't it make sense that Quant would want to team up with, for instance, Jasmy? Yes, but will it ever happen? This is where I get the criticism probably from a lot of people. Like, Max, that's a stretch. Okay, fair enough. I will show you this, and it's good to do these things. I present you this. Overledger 2.2.11. All right, that was an update from a while back. Now, why point out some of these key things? Well, I'm gonna get into that as well. The reason why we want to point out some of these things, let me see if we can make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, there we go. Is because, it says right here, and let me zoom out, sorry about that. Yeah, it's Hyperledger fabric. What do we know about Quant? We know that, for instance, or not Quant, excuse me, I've been doing videos quite a bit today. It's been I've been very excited about my gatherings and findings in regards to Quant, obviously Jasmine and so on. So I apologize, but what I was going to state is this: when it comes to this, think about Jasmine for a moment. We have already established that with Jasmine that they use Hyperledger fabric, and of course the point I'm trying to make here is Overledger 2.2.11 connects to Hyperledger fabric. Now, this was posted July 22nd of 2022. Some people always want the recent news. Well, at the end of the day, you have to go back in time, if you will, to have an idea of, like, look what they did back then and look where we're at now. So we established, obviously, that, Jasmy uses Hyperledger fabric. But this whole thing in regards to Quant, that's a great question. Let's jump into this. So, as I scroll down here, it says this release supports interactions with Hyperledger Fabric in a sandbox environment. This release connects Overledger to Hyperledger Fabric, an enterprise-grade permission blockchain platform. Now, Overledger, at least back then, users can interact with a dedicated Hyperledger Fabric network in a sandbox environment and use Overledger APIs to submit transactions and perform block searches. Hyperledger Fabric is intended as a foundation for developing applications and solutions with a modular architecture. It has a versatile design that suits a wide range of industry use cases, especially in supply chain management and financial services. Boom. This would make sense for Quant and, for instance, the country of Japan to create what? Interoperability. Well, what about interoperability through Jasmy? Well, if Jasmy is promoting these stablecoins and Jasmy is, through data democratization of the DD coin and so on, is the only player, or as the saying goes, the only ticket in town to get the job done, Am I too far off? You know, a while back I was thinking about this and I said to myself, I wonder if there's really something here. I'm telling you guys flat out. I know that, you know, sometimes I do these deep dives and I get some criticism. People are like, man, you should just condense it all in 15 minutes. Hey, I'm not that guy sometimes. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. But I want to state this. I decided to dig deeper on this. And again, everything you saw on this outline, boom, supply chain management and financial services. I mean, this Hyperledger fabric simply makes sense for interoperability with Quant and especially with Jasmy because they use Hyperledger fabric. Because the platform is notable for its unique approach to consensus that enables performance at scale whilst preserving privacy. It even says while preserving privacy. And at scale, we got to give everybody the same user experience for these CBDCs. And then on top of that, if we can incentivize people with a reward token, with, you know, for instance, Jasmine's DD coin, data democratization coin, this is an absolute win-win for, I don't know if it's the biggest win for Quant, right? Because, it, you know, you could just, to me, this is like another notch in their belt, if you will. But it's a huge win for Japan, and it's a huge win for Jasmine. Quant uses AWS managed blockchain services to host our Hyperledger Fabric sandbox network. This release also contains a use case for a customer loyalty program. Oh my God! It's like, is Max making this stuff up? No, I am not making this stuff up at all. You know, I wanted to kind of say this for the live show, but I said to myself, you know what? I've been doing like probably about 2 months straight of live shows because you know, God bless Larry. I mean, he's having problems with his eyes and so on. So you know, I'm not doing live shows on the weekends while he's doing it. And I said to myself, I'm going to utilize my extra time for this deep dive. And I'm so glad I did it. So glad I did it because, again, I'm going to read it one more time. This release also contains a use case for a customer loyalty program. What is that loyalty program? Enter in what would make sense for a DD coin. You literally saw the outline. And if you saw it in the past from, like, you know, again, shout out to KIR Finance and so on, or anybody else who's covered the whole deep dive of, you know, Jasmy and DD. Again, this makes sense. And says for this, we have deployed extended versions of QRC20 Tier 1 smart contracts. And like I mentioned before, this is why I take these deep dives. You got to know what you're talking about. QRC721 Tier 1 smart contracts for NFTs in sandbox environment. Again, remember the examples we saw for the DD coin. I can't make this stuff up even if I tried. Here it is right here. So it says users can submit transactions using an appropriate QRC token for loyalty and flight rewards. Or how about this? Some of the rewards on maybe taking a bullet train or something like that in Japan. Of course, there's full release notes, yada, 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 right? All this good stuff. So in closing, what I want to state to you guys as Jasmy and Quant holders, believe it or not, to me, this is absolutely massive. Now, you may be saying, well, it's not that massive. We didn't get an official response from Quant. You're never going to get an official response from Quant unless they come out and said, hey, you know, we partnered up with Jasmine. They might not say we partnered up with any of them. Just like they're not going to say, hey, guess what? We have this partnership with this particular blockchain or that particular blockchain. They have said that, for instance, with like Hedera and so on. But the point is, you may not ever see it with Jasmine until they get it done. But how about this for size? If I was Jasmine or one of the, you know, the top guys from there that, you know, Haro works with and so on, I'm just throwing this out there, all right? I mean, he might not even watch this video. But I want to state this. Recognize what Gilbert Verdi and Quant have recently done. And if anything, say to yourself, we would like to have interoperability, right? That would simply make sense. Okay, what's the next step forward? The next step forward is to simply do what? Get the QNT token, and you're going to use that for the license fees to have a license to run Overledger. And then with Overledger, now you have access to do what? you have access to create the interoperability through their operating system. And from there, if you want to like contact, for instance, Gilbert Verdian of Quant or Martin Hargreaves or whoever the heck it is, you can simply do so. Does that ever happen? I don't know. But here's the key thing. You can see where things are going. And Quant did apply for that patent in Japan. So with that said, that concludes today's deep dive in regards to Quant and Jasmy. You better believe that if they want to make the connection, it is right there in the form of what? Through Quant's Overledger, because what you saw a while back with Hyperledger Fabric. Thank you again for watching today's video in regards to Quant and Jasmy. How about that? Smash that like if you haven't done so already. If you like a live show, check us out every single day at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for Crypto Talk Now. And you all have a blessed day, everybody. Smash that bell notification, too. We'll see you on the next one.